Hey, welcome to episode 69 of FreshAirAtFive, the podcast. This is for the week of April 18 to 22. This week, I listened to a number of podcasts. I took Tuesday off. As you'll notice, there's a blank spot for Tuesday, but that's okay because I needed to take care of myself and I needed to stop and do some things for myself, like get some more sleep. So I did that. It was good, very good. And later in the week, I listened to some podcasts and conversations about connections. Made a connection with a certain educator from Abbotsford here, colleague down the road, and she came and walked with me yesterday morning. Fantastic. So this is recorded at the end of the week, but it's the introduction to episode 69. And happy Earth Day week, as we also think about our planet, this place we live. And you know what? Get out and enjoy the planet. And Tim Stevens said, get outside. We got to take the kids outside, listen to the birds. You hear the birds in the background? Fantastic to hear. All right, without further ado, episode 69, let's go.
I'm Chris Stutchko, co-host of the 9th Grade Experience podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to Fresh Air at 5, the podcast. I'm your host, Brian Carpenter. Fresh Air at 5 is my regular attempt to exercise by walking about my neighborhood to take in podcast content, then reflect in an unedited video, which I finally post to my Twitter channel. This podcast will be a regular collection of the audio from these selfie videos. You can follow me on Twitter at FreshAirAtFive or check out my website, briancarpenter.com, for other content I have created and collected.
Hey, PLN, Monday, April 18, 2022. Happy Easter Monday to you. And this past weekend was Easter weekend with Good Friday and Easter Sunday. And it was a wonderful Sunday. I went to church and we talked about the resurrection of Jesus and how that's all very important to my Christian faith and how that's important. It was a great day. Had dinner with our friends last evening and we celebrated around the table together. It was fantastic. And so, yes, I'm telling you this because this is part of my story, part of who I am. And how do we open up our story? How do we start telling people our story? One of the ways that I am doing that is by sharing a bit of who I am during my podcast and my reflections on Fresh Air at 5 that's been documented and stored. Another way that we can do that is that we could write blogs and we could write articles. You could even write a picture book. And on episode 110 of the Shay and Pav Show, the Staff Room podcast, Shay and Pav talk about their journey of writing a book called The Magnificent Microphone. And that upon the time of me listening to this morning and recording my reflections right now, I'm hoping was in that first 48-hour window of the release of The Magnificent Microphone, which is a picture book that they put together with Codebreaker EDU and an amazing artist who I can't remember her name, but they collaborated with her. They did watercolor paintings for the book so that they could tell their story of their podcast journey, a fictional podcast journey of them starting a podcast as young people. And what does that look like? What does it sound like? And who are they? And, this is recorded now. Awesome. Fantastic, guys. I'm so proud of you. And you guys are so creative in the way that you approach this. Creative is a great word because we're all creative in our own way. And how can you express yourself and say things that you can say and share part of you with the people? Take a listen to The Magnificent Microphone, or actually take a read of that. Go buy it. I'm going to go buy it today. Peace. Bye. One more thing for April 18, 2022. I just listened to Prairie Rose Possibilities, episode 2.09, as Cami Cannikins talks with Kimiko Ballantyne out of Alberta and in the Prairie Rose District, and how Kimiko is the point teacher on the Prairie Rose Art Academy, and how over the course of this past year, Kimiko has used in person at her own site as well as video conferencing with remote sites to teach students in 6 different locations, not all exactly at the same time, but at different times, about art and photography. And they're currently working, according to the podcast, on their painting unit, and authentic audiences coming as they prepare their art pieces for a silent auction at the Kaleidoscope event that's happening on June 1st in Alberta. That is so fantastic. I said recently on a podcast with the Wired educator, Kelly Croy, I said, so how does the stuff that we create persist or carry on beyond the canvas in which we create it? And how are we, so that's what a question I asked. And this is one way that Kimiko is having her students, the students of Prairie Rose, share their work beyond by going to Kaleidoscope and being proud of their paintings and auctioning them off and raising some funds likely for the Art Academy program, so that other students can join in on the program, and the students that are there can grow their skills and understanding of art and critique and getting feedback. And so that's great to hear. Maddie, a grade 10 student, spoke about her experience and how critique is so difficult. And her first critique, she was nervous and scared, and but it's getting easier as we practice, just like practicing with that paintbrush. So thank you, Cami, Kimiko, and Maddie, for sharing on the Prairie Rose Possibilities podcast. And it's just so great because we're talking about hybrid learning. How can we have students in one place learning from a teacher in another place using technology? Peace. Bye. Hey, PLN, April 20, 2022. Happy birthday to my dad. Dad's turning 84 today, and it's gonna be a great day. Going for breakfast at Denny's for his free meal this morning with Mom, and then tonight we've got family dinner at the Dragon Fort. So super excited about that. Happy birthday, Dad. Dad's doing well. Him and Mom are still doing lots of great things and busy and healthy, and so thankful for that. All right, so today I listened to Partial Credit, and I don't know the episode number off the top of my head, but it is the Partial Credit episode called Bad Puns. It's with Banned Puns, and it's with Justin Johnson, who is the Illinois Teacher of the Year for not just 1 year, but 2 years. You got to hear that story about how that goes down. And Justin Johnson teaches music in Illinois. And at the top of it, Donnie and Jesse got talking about baseball and how the baseball season or something was getting going or something like that. And okay, my connection to baseball is this. The Toronto Blue Jays are our Canadian baseball team. I don't follow them, but I just looked it up, and it says the Blue Jays are first in the AL East, or is that maybe the Boston Red Sox that they're playing? But whatever, I don't know, but I just looked it up, so that's a connection. Another connection was I was in Illinois back in 2002 as I was a research scientist, and my company sent me to the American Chemical Society meeting in Chicago, and I took a nuclear magnetic resonance spectrometer course, which is a diagnostic tool that scientists use, and I was there, and while we were there, we went to see the Chicago Cubs play at Wrigley Field. So that was super cool to do, and that's my connection to the baseball. All right, so as I'm listening to this morning, Justin is talking about doing band and teaching band and musical learning over Zoom during the pandemic, and how that was one of the hardest things that he's done. Okay, I'm going to pause for here and come right back. One more thing for April 20, 2022, and I was just reflecting on how I had started listening to episode 90 of the Partial Credit podcast, and Partial Credit with Jesse and Donnie and Jeff, and they were talking with band teacher Justin Johnson, and the episode's called Band Puns Are His Forte with Justin Johnson. So as you're talking about teaching in a remote way over Zoom, doing band and doing practices and things like that, you watched your students, Justin, come back. Some of them come back better than if they had been there in school with you, which is quite fascinating. And because band and music has to do so much with muscle memory and practice, and the students had time to do so at home in a different way than they would if they had been in the building with you. So that's curious. I think that's very curious. And have you continued, Justin, on using hybrid techniques, Zoom things, or the ability for students to record at home with technologies that they learned to enhance your band program? I think that's a great opportunity. I don't know if you are doing so, but I think that's something that we can tap on and work on and have that leverage in our space now. Yes. So, the band puns are super fantastic. That's the game show that they play. And Tiny Tuba. I am going to go home and search for Tiny Tuba and see what that sounds like, and maybe play that in my class with my students tomorrow. So thank you, Donnie, for that useless website. All right, talk to you. Bye. One more thing for April 2022. I just listened to the Knock Knock Who's There podcast with Chris and Miles, and the joke of the day today is about baseball, which ties in with my theme. Today's recording of, as you know, Donnie and Jeff and Jesse were talking on the Partial Credit podcast about baseball on their podcast episode 90. So there's a connection there to the last one. And so, hey Miles, how you doing? You're getting bigger, and it's been great to keep hearing you record with your dad, and keep that up. Episode 131 of the Knock Knock Who's There podcast. So teachers, you need a joke for your day. Go take a listen to Miles and Chris as they talk about jokes, and you can use them in your classroom. All right, talk to you. Bye. The last thing for April 2022, I just listened to episode 777 of the 10-Minute Teacher podcast with Vicki Davis. And Vicki had on guest Rachel Dene Poth, who is a Spanish teacher, and she has a book that she has recently put out called Your World Languages Classroom. And her book is about tips and strategies for teaching world language in both face-to-face as well as remote and hybrid, and how you can use technology to leverage world language learning. I'm going to pass this along to our Spanish and French teacher at my school, as we are an online school, and she does some of those things. So Rochelle, this may spark some interest more for her and give her some more tools and weapons for delivering world languages. All right, thanks, Vicki. 5 tips that Rochelle shares with us. And there's things like building relationships so that you can break down those uncomfortability and anxiety barriers. Not necessarily it's going to work for sure, but it really helps. So doing things like that, and allowing students to create projects using various tools that may not be in the immediate purview of a world languages classroom. So thank you so much for these tips. There's 3 others that I didn't say. You'll have to listen to episode 777 of the 10-Minute Teacher Podcast. Just takes 10 minutes. Have a good day. Bye. Hey, PLN, it is Thursday, April 21, 2022. I've got a guest walker with me this morning. Say hi, Joanne.
Hello, everybody.
So this is Joanne Weatherby, and she is a colleague of mine in the district, and she reached out and said, hey, can I come for a walk with you? And so, this is not my regular routine because I walk by myself, Joanne.
Yes, I know, right?
And so, welcome to the podcast. Thank you. We're going to go and listen to a couple podcasts now, reflect, and do what I do, but together. So it's going to be good. All right. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
See ya.
APLN April 21, 2022. We just listened to episode 30 of the Good News, Brad News show. And with me today, you can see her in the dark a little bit there. This is Joanne Weatherby.
Hello.
All right, so Joanne, what's your tag on Twitter?
J Weatherby, at J Weatherby.
At J Weatherby. So we'll have that in the show notes as well as in the tweet today. All right, so Joanne, what did you hear on the Good News, Brad News show, episode 30, with interview with Menu? What was her name? Rachel? No, can't remember. I'm sorry.
I was more interested in the content she was talking about than the name, but I definitely have to buy her book because it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So what I took away from that is that, and the title was, slow down. It's more like, let's teach kids how to learn. Like, learning how to learn, I think, is the most important piece. You got to slow down, build the skills, so then you can do all the stuff that the curriculum needs to have done after, or supplemented it with it. So that was the whole piece that I got of slow down, build the skills, SEL, help them out, and include everybody in the process.
So it has to do with their self-esteem, their in the subjects and the work that we're doing, so they have the confidence to go and even ask a question, right?
Yes.
Like asking that question, that's hard to do in a room when there's 29 others that are like, I'm not gonna ask that question, that's a stupid question. But getting past that so that they can learn to advocate for themselves at a young age, and it helps them grow and be better later in life. She talked about, doing this in elementary from K to grade 5 or grade 3. And it is important that we, have our elementary school teachers, and not all the burden is on them, but that they recognize the importance of their job in the big picture. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's for every grade, for every kid, for every adult, really. And I really like what she talked about when it's like play-based learning, what you do in elementary school. I'm telling you, we should be doing it more in high schools because of inquiry-based learning.
Good. We're coming right back. We'll be right back. Bye. One more thing for April 21, 2022. Joanne Weatherby here with me, guest Walker, and we just listened to Aaron Menu on episode 30 of the Good News, Brad News podcast. I think this is a new podcast that Joanne's going to listen to.
Oh, absolutely.
Probably. So Brad, meet Joanne. Joanne, meet Brad.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Yes. Aaron was talking about play-based learning and in-the-moment learning and relevancy, right?
Absolutely, and play and learning through play. And people think it's only for like kindergarten or elementary school, but I incorporate it into secondary school science or whatever I teach all the time. We just call it inquiry-based learning. And that's so important because now it's relevant to them because they're choosing how to figure things out. They're manipulating and experimenting and trying to figure things out, creating their own questions and investigating. And it's relevant to them, and it's so applicable, and they're actually engaged because they want to know, because they are in control of their own learning.
That's true, right? It reminds me of back in the day, like a long time ago, when we would get an electronic device and I didn't have the instructions and I would push buttons.
Yeah.
Just push these buttons, but now we make it all official.
Yes,
call it inquiry-based learning.
Yeah.
We have to put all these big names on it as opposed to playing and
just
learning, right?
Figure it out. And they do that now anyway. If they want to learn something, they go on YouTube and they figure it out for themselves.
That's right.
So I don't know why we think we have to stand in front of the classroom and teach them, because really they could go on YouTube and learn it in 2 minutes.
Well, we got the degree and we're getting paid. We're getting paid.
We are the guides and the facilitators in the process now.
Absolutely.
We're not the content distributors anymore.
That's right. Okay, we're going to get some more PD in here. Listen to another podcast. We'll talk to you guys in a bit. Thanks so much. Bye. One more thing for April 21, 2022. All right, John, we just listened to another podcast. This is a hashtag new to me podcast, but you've probably listened to it before.
I listened to it before. It's Simon Sinek, and it was called Partnering with Jean Allwang. And it was about how we all need to be kind of thinking more community-minded and collaborating with each other, and actually finding partnerships with people who you don't necessarily see eye to eye with all the time.
Yeah.
And working through those things and finding common ground. And she calls it the sparkling pieces when you come to some realizations.
And, having those relationships with those that you don't necessarily agree with all the time helps us grow.
Yes.
Like even look at how we grow and we hang out with people that are smarter than us. Like we don't know what they know, but we spend time with them and it grows us because we're spending time with them, and they grow because they're taking time to learn, to teach someone else and develop themselves even more.
Absolutely. You have to have that growth, that open mindset, that growth mindset to be able to do that, because you don't want to be stuck in your own box, because you're just going to be there, and you need to be able to, see outside of yourself and see what other people are doing and embrace where everyone's at and learn from each other.
Yes. And so it's about collaboration and relationships. And she talked in there in her book about hyper individualism and how we are trained in our society to be hyper individualistic, but yet it takes so much work for us to partner with someone else. And as opposed to just going, we're going to work together to make the best thing, we got to work through the conflict, work through the differences, and work through the challenges so that we can be better on the other side of the thing that we're working on creating.
Absolutely. Like when you think of challenges, I'm thinking I had to get up at 5 a.m. this morning to get here. That was a huge challenge. You have no idea how far I had to walk and all the uphill battles I had today. However, if we didn't go through that struggle, we wouldn't be able to have these conversations together, because Zooming it is not the same.
No, exactly.
Or meeting in a conference, and sitting there for 2 seconds, not the same at all.
Yeah. All right. Thanks so much. And the last thing for April 21, 2022, this morning's Fresh Air at 5 has been a breath of fresh air. I've enjoyed it. I've walked with Joanne Weatherby, our guest walker for the day, for the season. Like, it's been a long time since I've had a guest walker. And Tim Cavey, you got me started thinking about this about last summer, as you were my first guest walker. So, Tim, here we go. Here's another guest walker, Joanne Weatherby, and we're doing it and collaborating, and the sun is coming up and the days are getting longer. It's all good. All right, Tim, we just listened to episode 222 of Teachers on Fire podcast, Spark episode called It's a Breath of Fresh Air, Need to Breathe, and talking about how this past 2 years has been a drag because of our masks, and how it's been hard, and it's been so hard to teach, but so important that we do that. Joanne, thoughts on this?
It's really hard, but it's for the better of everybody, and I think sometimes people kind of lose sight of that we're all trying to just protect each other. And so whatever is best for everybody, absolutely, whatever makes people feel welcome, feel safe, that's important.
Yeah, that inclusion piece, this gets around to how do we include everyone, right?
Yeah.
We had disagreements and conflicts about, do we need to wear masks? This is just so stupid, to me conceding and going, it's so I can see my students face to face, or at least eye to eye, in the classroom when we're in the classroom together. And, going over remote and doing those things, I'm an online teacher, we can do those things, but a whole lot is lost by having to do remote learning.
Yeah, absolutely. Just because you can doesn't mean you necessarily have to should all the time. And people need, to touch things, to feel things, to see things, and to verbally communicate together in close proximity. And I'm just so glad that we can do that now.
Yes, exactly. And this morning, Joanne has been so fantastic. Thanks for joining me on Fresh Air at 5.
Thank you.
And, she's huffing and puffing like I typically do. But, it's a great opportunity for us to grow and learn from each other. All right.
Absolutely.
Bye, all. All right, so at the end of this, we're going to just interview Joanne Weatherby a little bit and get to know her a little tiny bit. Joanne, you've been teaching for how long?
Oh, almost 30 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow. You probably didn't know
No,
that.
I didn't know that. No, that's surprising.
Yeah.
And you received a special award from the federal government.
The Prime Minister's Award for Teaching Excellence.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And you are my second Prime Minister's Award for Teaching Excellence guest walker.
That's what you told me before, yeah.
And Tim Stevenson, my buddy down the road in Walnut Grove, he received that same award. What does that mean? What's that mean? What's it do for the teaching profession and you as an advocate for sharing?
It means to me that I'm not just a bubble in my own space, that people see what we're doing, and it's not just me, because I'm so collaborative that I wouldn't get to where I am today unless I had my group of peeps that really help me, and we collaborate together and share ideas all the time. But it's really nice to see that our innovative ideas and what we do and what we share actually is being seen outside of the classroom, outside of our school, even outside of our district and across the country. It's overwhelming, and it's humbling, and just really honored that people see what we're doing and say, hey, this is great, keep doing what you're doing.
I just listened to a podcast yesterday with Justin Johnson, who's the teacher of the year in Illinois, and he's had the privilege of being that for 2 years because of COVID and all that kind of stuff. He's on teaching engagements and things. Do you have to do any of that kind of stuff as...
I've talked with a school board at one of the school board meetings. I've been asked now to do different workshops in different districts, and then different schools in our district. So it's nice that doors are opening for me so I can share my practice. It's not like what I'm doing is what everyone should be doing, but I like to share, this is what I'm doing. Let's share ideas, and I'd love to learn from you too.
Absolutely fantastic. Do you do any blogging or recording and sharing beyond that means at all?
Not yet, but we're getting there. I'm developing an app, and it's called EduFind, and it's going to be launched in September, and it's for teachers collaborating with teachers.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So very good. All right. Thanks, Joanne. Nice to meet you. Have a great day. Hey, PLN, Friday, April 22, 2022. We're here at the end of a week, and it's been a full week, really full week. We had Easter Monday off, but I did work on Easter Monday because I had so much marking, and students are putting their work in because we're getting close to the end of the school year for my onliners. All right, so this week, lots going on. Yearbook is coming together very quickly, and seems like it's just frantic at this point. This is my first time yearbooking, so I don't know if this is normal, but I probably is. And the way I've organized my workflow with my students, I got to work on that. So this is the first year of doing yearbook and how we've done it, and I'm building it with Google Slides. Love Google Slides. So good. So very good. Format to 8.5 by 11, and away you go. Put your page borders and stuff in there, and yes, we can collaborate real time. All right, speaking of which, and Google stuff, I just listened to the EdTech News Brief with Jake Miller, episode 3, and Jake brings us Google updates about Google Docs and going and having pageless Google Docs. Okay, Jake, I don't know, maybe it's me being old, but that's just kind of bizarre, having a pageless Google Doc. Like, when does it end? Okay, I guess it does end at the bottom. Like, how do you know that you're where you are? So I'm gonna have to play around with that. Check that out. So yeah, that's the pageless feature under the File, Page Setup menu, I believe that's what he said. Then he talked about Seesaw, and my buddy at work was like, Brian, we got to get onto Seesaw. You got to get onto Seesaw next year, and we should all be using it for our secondary. So I'm not a Seesaw user for secondary yet, for not my onliners, but my in-building students, and so I got to get working on that. And yes, fantastic dad joke at the very end, Jake. All right, I hope you're having a great week. I'm having a good week, and I'm glad it's Friday because I need to sleep in tomorrow. All right, we'll talk to you guys later. Okay, bye. The last thing for April 22, 2022, as I'm wrapping up my walk this morning and my walk for this week, I took in episode 54 of Science 360 with Tim Stevenson, and he had on guest Jessica LeBlanc, who is a expert in understanding stress, and expert and teaches how to regulate, and does experiential learning out at UQLit and out in Tofino, and brings people from their busy stressful lives and teaches them about regulation and about calm and about getting through the tunnel And I like the analogy, Jessica, that you talk about, when we enter a stressful situation, it's like entering a tunnel and we have to get through the tunnel. And as we're going through the tunnel, we dispatch the threat and come out of the tunnel. And how this COVID experience that we have all across this whole planet have experiences that we entered a tunnel and we had no idea how long the tunnel was. We didn't have any idea of how grand the threat was. And we did not see definitely the social disconnection and isolation and all of the psychological challenges that we were going to be facing by staying safe and staying away from other people. And Tim, you and I, we've connected and we've been intentional about connecting. And we need to connect actually soon, maybe tomorrow. So I'll just put that out there as an invitation. But we need to make sure we manage and maintain our connections with people and take care of each other and ask hard questions about what are you doing with how you're taking care of yourself. And, so this is a really good episode. I really enjoyed listening to this today. And thank you, Jessica and Tim, for your just organic conversation about stress and about the world that we live in. And, on that note, not to throw any more stress on it, but happy Earth Day. How are we taking care of this planet? Okay. All right. That's about it for today. We'll talk to you guys soon. Have a fabulous weekend. Okay. Bye.
As my one word for 2021 is appreciate, I appreciate you giving me a listen as I've created this podcast experience for you. It's a unique Blinkist or Coles Notes version of the content I take in, like a highlight reel, so that you can hopefully find other interesting podcasts you may not have considered before. I've recorded the specific podcast episodes in the show notes for your learning convenience. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming episodes. And if you enjoyed this podcast and its format, share it with someone else. Tweet about your experience or give it a review on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts. Fresh Air at 5 can also be found on Voice Ed Radio. Your voice is right here, and on the Education Podcast Network, Podcasts for Educators, Podcasts by Educators. I hope you have a fantastic day and get some fresh air before the day is out, and take care of yourself because you're worth it.